He found her trembling in the dark, scarfing down cold fries from the garbage because she hadn't been paid a dime in 3 weeks. She was starving because she refused to sleep with the manager. But she didn't know the man watching her wasn't just a customer, he was the owner, and he was about to lock the doors to make sure no one left until she got paid. If this story pulled you in, make sure to hit that subscribe button so you never miss what's coming next. I've got another unforgettable story dropping tomorrow. And while you're here, jump into the comments and tell me where you're watching from. I love seeing our community from all around the world. All right, let's get back into it. The black suit felt like armor against Joaquin's chest. 2 hours ago, he'd been closing a deal in a penthouse that overlooked the city like a chessboard. Now he stood in the back kitchen of the Blue Moon Diner, Branch 12, the quietest and most profitable laundering point in his network of 43 legitimate fronts. Legitimate, the word tasted bitter. "Lock up when you're done, boss," muttered Rico, one of his lieutenants, as he headed toward the back exit. The last of the kitchen staff had clocked out 20 minutes earlier, leaving only the hum of industrial refrigerators and the tick of cooling metal. Joaquin nodded, watching the door close. Nobody here knew Joaquin Nieto as anything more than the investor, the silent partner who showed up once a month to check the books. His tattoos stayed hidden under tailored collars. His reputation stayed buried under shell companies and tax forms. His father had taught him one rule: never let them see you coming. So far, the diner had been perfect. Clean books, steady cash flow, no attention from anyone who mattered. But tonight, something felt wrong. The numbers had been off for weeks. Not enough to raise alarms, but enough to itch at the back of his mind like a splinter. Payroll discrepancies, inventory shrinkage, the kind of slow bleed that meant someone was either stealing or lying, or both. It was 11:52 p.m. when Joaquin finished his walkthrough of the front dining area. The chairs were stacked. The register was closed. Everything looked normal. He was reaching for his keys when he heard it, a soft metallic clink. Then another, coming from the kitchen. Joaquin froze, instincts sharpening. Everyone had left. He'd watched them go. He moved silently across the tile floor, his leather shoes making no sound. The kitchen was dark except for the security light above the prep station, casting everything in cold, industrial shadow. He could hear something now quiet, hurried movement, the rustle of paper, the scrape of a fork against metal. He crept forward, past the dish station, past the walk-in cooler, until he reached the corner near the storage shelves. What he saw made his breath catch. A young woman sat hunched at the stainless steel counter, her back rigid with tension. Her shoulders curved inward like she was trying to make herself smaller. Her waitress uniform, the faded teal dress with the white collar and the name tag that read Lolita, was stained with grease splatters and coffee rings. Her hair, light brown and pulled back in a messy bun, had strands falling loose around her face. In her hands she held a styrofoam container. Half a burger, cold, probably from the trash. She ate fast, too fast, not savoring it, not even tasting it, just trying to get it down before fear caught up with her. Joaquin stood perfectly still, watching. He'd built an empire on reading people, on knowing when someone was lying, when they were scared, when they were about to break. And this woman, this girl, really, she couldn't be more than 23 or 24, was all three. She finished the burger and folded the styrofoam container carefully, her hands trembling slightly as she placed it into a plastic grocery bag beside her. Then she reached for another container fries, cold and limp, and started eating those too, one by one, every single one. Joaquin's jaw tightened. He recognized her. Lolita, the quiet one who worked doubles without complaint, the one who always volunteered for the worst tables, the truckers who ordered coffee and sat for hours, the teenagers who split one meal between 4 people and left no tip, the one who'd brought him coffee 3 times this week without ever meeting his eyes. He'd thought she was shy. Now he realized she was invisible, by choice or by necessity. He couldn't tell yet. She stood slowly, moving with the practiced silence of someone who'd learned not to be noticed. She picked up the grocery bag. There were more containers inside. Leftovers, scraps, things meant for the trash. Joaquin knew desperation when he saw it. He'd grown up with it, had clawed his way out of it with blood on his hands and bodies in his wake. This wasn't theft. This was survival. Lolita was about to turn toward the exit when Joaquin stepped into the light, his shoes clicking against the tile. The sound echoed like a gunshot in the empty kitchen. She spun around, the grocery bag slipping from her hands and hitting the floor with a dull thud. Her eyes went wide, pale green, rimmed red with exhaustion, and her mouth opened in a silent gasp. For a moment, Neither of them moved. Joaquin studied her, really looked at her. The hollows under her cheekbones, the way her uniform hung loose on her frame, like she'd lost weight recently. The small cut on her knuckle, probably from a knife slip during prep. The fear in her eyes. "When you get paid," he said quietly, his voice cutting through the silence like a blade. "Do you plan to pay for that?" Lolita nearly choked. Her hands flew to her mouth, and she stumbled backward until her hip hit the counter. The color drained from her face. I'll pay," she stammered, her voice breaking. "I swear. When I get my paycheck, I'll—" Joaquin tilted his head, his expression unreadable. Not angry. Not yet. Just watching. Waiting. "When you get paid?" he repeated, softer this time. Something in his tone made her freeze. Her eyes darted to the floor. Her shoulders tensed. She looked like she wanted to run but knew she couldn't. She swallowed hard. "I haven't—" The words caught in her throat. Joaquin took a step closer, his hands sliding into his pockets. Casual, controlled, but his gaze never left her face. "You haven't what?" Lolita's breath hitched. Her fingers twisted together, white-knuckled. "I haven't been paid," she whispered. "In 3 weeks." Silence. The refrigerator hummed. The fluorescent light buzzed overhead. Somewhere in the distance, a car alarm went off. Joaquin didn't move, didn't blink, but inside, something shifted. 3 weeks, he said slowly. She nodded, tears welling in her eyes. "And you're still working?" Another nod. "Why?" The question hung in the air between them. Lolita's lips trembled. "Because I need the job. Because I can't afford to lose it. Because—" her voice cracked. "Because no one else will hire me." Joaquin's expression didn't change, but his jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. He knew that feeling. That trapped, suffocating weight of having no options, no way out, no one to turn to. He'd killed men for less. "Who told you that you wouldn't get paid?" he asked. Lolita hesitated, fear flickering across her face. "The manager," she whispered. And just like that, Joaquin knew exactly what was happening. Joaquin didn't move, didn't speak, just stood there in the dim kitchen light, his presence filling the space like smoke thick, suffocating, impossible to ignore. Lolita's hands were still twisted together, her knuckles bone white. She looked like she wanted to disappear into the wall behind her. "The manager," Joaquin repeated, his voice dangerously quiet. "Tell me his name." "Mr. Patterson," she whispered. He said there were complications with payroll, that I'd get everything once it was sorted out." Joaquin's eyes narrowed. 3 weeks ago. She nodded. "And you believed him." It wasn't a question. It was an accusation wrapped in silk. Lolita flinched. "I didn't have a choice. He said if I complained, if I made trouble, he'd—" She stopped, swallowing hard. "He'd what?" "Fire me." Her voice was barely audible now. "And make sure I couldn't get hired anywhere else in the city." Joaquin felt something cold settle in his chest. The kind of cold that came before violence, before consequences. He'd reviewed the payroll reports himself just last week. Every employee had been marked as paid. Every check had cleared. The numbers were clean, which meant Patterson had been pocketing her wages, or withholding them for leverage. Either way, it was theft. And in Joaquin's world, theft had only one punishment. "How much does he owe you?" Joaquin asked. Lolita's eyes widened slightly, surprised by the question. I don't know exactly. Maybe 2,000? Maybe more? $2,000. 3 weeks of work. Double shifts. Terrible customers. All for nothing." Joaquin's jaw tightened. "And you've been eating leftovers to survive." It wasn't a question, but she answered anyway. "Yes." The word hung in the air like a confession. Joaquin studied her face, really looked at her, the exhaustion carved into her features, the way her eyes had that glassy, distant look of someone who'd stopped hoping for things to get better. She reminded him of his mother. The memory came unbidden, his mother at the kitchen table, counting coins with shaking hands, trying to figure out how to stretch $10 into 3 meals. The way she'd smiled at him and his sister, pretending everything was fine even as her stomach growled. She died broke, died tired, died believing the world didn't care about people like her. And she'd been right, until Joaquin had made them care. "Sit down," he said, nodding toward the counter. Lolita hesitated, confusion flickering across her face. "I'm not going to hurt you," Joaquin added, his tone softer but no less commanding. "Sit." Slowly, carefully, she lowered herself onto the stool. Her hands folded in her lap. Her eyes stayed fixed on the counter. Joaquin moved to the other side, leaning against the stainless steel. The distance between them felt deliberate, safe, non-threatening. "When did this start?" he asked. Lolita bit her lip. 3 weeks ago. After I... She stopped. "After you what?" Silence. Joaquin waited. He was good at waiting. Patient. Predatory. Finally, she spoke. "After I said no." The words were so quiet he almost missed them, but he didn't. His hands, resting on the counter, curled into fists. "He propositioned you." She nodded, tears sliding down her cheeks now. She wiped them away quickly, like she was ashamed of them. "It started small," she whispered. "Compliments. Comments about how I looked in the uniform, how I should smile more. Then he started..." Her voice broke. "He started touching my shoulder, my back, said he was just being friendly." Joaquin's vision went red at the edges. "And when you told him to stop?" He laughed, said I was being dramatic, that I should be grateful someone was paying attention to me. She took a shaky breath. "Then one night he cornered me in the storage room, told me I could make things easier for myself, that he could help me get better shifts, more tips. If you slept with him..." She nodded, fresh tears falling. "I said no. I told him I wasn't interested, and he smiled. He just smiled and said, 'That's fine, but don't expect any favors from me.'" Joaquin's knuckles were white now. His breathing was controlled, measured, but inside he was calculating, planning. "The next day, my paycheck didn't come through," Lolita continued. "When I asked him about it, he said there was an issue with my time card, that I'd have to wait. Then the next week, same thing. And the week after that, and you didn't report him." She looked up at him then, her eyes red and desperate. "To who?" "He's the manager. He does the scheduling. He handles payroll. And even if I went over his head, who would believe me? I'm just a waitress. He'd say I was lying, that I was trying to get him in trouble because I was lazy or because you rejected him." Joaquin finished. She nodded, breaking down completely now. Her face fell into her hands, and her shoulders shook with silent sobs. Joaquin stood there, watching her fall apart, and felt something he hadn't felt in years. Rage. Not the hot, explosive kind. The cold, calculated kind. The kind that ended with bodies and silence. He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a handkerchief, white, pressed, expensive. He set it on the counter beside her. Lolita looked at it like it was a trap. "Take it," he said gently. She did, slowly, and pressed it to her face. "Did he touch you?" Joaquin asked, his voice deadly quiet. She shook her head. "Just my shoulder, my back. Nothing. Nothing else." Yet, the word hung between them like a promise of violence. Lolita looked up at him, her eyes wide. "Who are you?" Joaquin smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "Someone who's about to make sure you get paid." Before she could respond, footsteps echoed from the hallway, heavy, confident. The door to the kitchen swung open, and Patterson walked in. He was tall, broad-shouldered, with graying hair and the kind of smile that didn't reach his eyes. He wore a polo shirt with the diner's logo and khakis that were too tight. His smile died the moment he saw Lolita. "What the hell are you still doing here?" he barked. Then he saw Joaquin, and his expression shifted. Confusion, then annoyance. "Can I help you?" Patterson asked, his tone clipped. Joaquin straightened, his hands sliding into his pockets. "Actually," he said calmly, "I think you can." Patterson's eyes narrowed as he looked between Joaquin and Lolita. His jaw tightened, and that fake smile returned the kind salesmen used when they were about to lie. "I wasn't aware we had visitors after hours," he said, his voice dripping with false politeness. "The diner's closed. You'll need to come back tomorrow." Joaquin didn't move, didn't blink. "I'm not a visitor." Patterson's smile faltered. "Excuse me?" "I said I'm not a visitor." Joaquin's voice was calm, measured, but it carried weight. Authority, the kind that made men like Patterson nervous without knowing why. Patterson shifted his weight, crossing his arms over his chest. The gesture was meant to look authoritative, but Joaquin saw it for what it was, defensive. "Well, either way, we're closed. And this one..." He jabbed a finger toward Lolita, who flinched. "Shouldn't even be here." "Lolita, what did I tell you about hanging around after your shift?" Lolita's voice was barely a whisper. "I was just nothing." Patterson's voice rose, bouncing off the stainless steel surfaces. "You think I don't notice inventory going missing? You think I'm stupid?" Joaquin watched Lolita shrink into herself, her shoulders curling inward. The fear in her eyes was visceral, real. It made him sick. "What inventory?" Joaquin asked quietly. Patterson spun toward him, irritation flashing across his face. "I'm sorry. Who are you exactly? Because you're not staff, and you're not authorized to be back here." "Answer the question," Joaquin said, his tone dropping several degrees. Something in his voice made Patterson pause, made him reassess. His eyes swept over Joaquin's suit, expensive, tailored, the kind that cost more than Patterson made in a month. The watch on his wrist, the confidence in his posture. Patterson's expression shifted. Calculation replaced irritation. "Look, I don't know who you are, but this is an internal matter. Employee theft is serious, and I'm handling it according to company policy." "Employee theft," Joaquin repeated slowly. "Is that what you're calling this?" "That's exactly what I'm calling it." Patterson gestured at the grocery bag on the floor, its contents partially visible. "She's been stealing food for weeks. I've been documenting everything. Tonight, I finally caught her red-handed." Lolita's face went pale. I wasn't." "Shut up," Patterson snapped. "You're already in enough trouble." The words hit her like a slap. She went silent, tears streaming down her face. Joaquin felt his control slipping. The careful restraint he'd spent years cultivating was cracking at the edges. "Documenting everything," he said, his voice deadly soft. "Interesting. Do these documents include the fact that you haven't paid her in 3 weeks?" Patterson's eyes went wide. Just for a second. Then the mask slammed back into place. "I don't know what she told you, but payroll issues are confidential. If she has concerns, she can file a complaint through the proper channels." "The proper channels," Joaquin repeated. "And those channels go through you. I'm the manager. That's how the system works." "Convenient." Patterson's face reddened. "Look, I don't have time for this. Lolita, you're suspended pending a full investigation. Leave your uniform and name tag on the counter. You'll hear from us within 5 business days." Lolita stood frozen, her hands trembling. "And you," Patterson turned back to Joaquin. "Need to leave before I call the police for trespassing." Joaquin smiled. It was the kind of smile that made smart men run. Patterson wasn't smart. "The police," Joaquin said thoughtfully. "That's an excellent idea. We should definitely get them involved. I'm sure they'd be very interested in your payroll practices. Maybe the labor board too. And the health department, while we're at it." Patterson's face went from red to purple. "Are you threatening me?" "I'm suggesting transparency. This is harassment. I could sue you for what?" Joaquin took a step forward. Just one. But the space between them felt like it had shrunk by miles. "For asking why you're withholding an employee's wages? For questioning why a waitress is eating garbage because her manager decided she doesn't deserve to be paid?" "She broke equipment," Patterson shouted, his composure finally cracking. "She's clumsy and careless, and that kitchen accident cost this location hundreds in repairs. I withheld her wages to cover damages. That's completely legal." "Legal," Joaquin said softly. "Show me the paperwork." Patterson blinked. "What?" "Show me the documentation, the incident report, the repair invoices, the agreement she signed acknowledging the debt." Silence. Patterson's mouth opened, closed, opened again. "It's in the office. I'm not getting it for some random." "Then let's go get it together." Patterson's eyes darted toward the door, toward escape. "I don't have to explain myself to you. I don't even know who the hell you are." Joaquin's smile widened. "No, you don't." The temperature in the kitchen seemed to drop. Lolita looked between them, confusion and fear warring on her face. She didn't understand what was happening, but she could feel the shift, the danger. Patterson could feel it too. His bravado was crumbling, replaced by something colder. Wariness. "I'm calling the police," he said, pulling out his phone. "Go ahead." Patterson's finger hovered over the screen. "I'm serious." "So am I." They stared at each other. A silent battle of wills. Finally, Patterson lowered his phone. "Fine. You want to see documentation? Come with me to the office." "But she—" He jabbed a finger at Lolita. "Stays here. And if anything is missing when I get back, I'm pressing charges." "She's coming with us," Joaquin said. "Absolutely not." "Then we're not going." Patterson's jaw worked. He was trapped, and he knew it. But he couldn't figure out how or why. "Fine," he spat. "But this is your last warning. I don't know who you think you are, but in this restaurant, I'm in charge. And when I prove that she owes me money, Both of you are leaving in handcuffs." Joaquin's expression didn't change, but inside, he was already calculating how long it would take to bury Patterson somewhere no one would ever find him. "Lead the way," Joaquin said quietly. Patterson turned toward the office, his shoulders squared, confidence returning now that he thought he was in control. He had no idea he was already dead. The office was cramped and stale, smelling of old coffee and stacked paperwork. Patterson moved behind the desk with the confidence of a man who thought he still had the upper hand. He yanked open a filing cabinet drawer with more force than necessary. "This is going to take a minute," he muttered, flipping through folders. "Not all of us have time to play detective in the middle of the night." Joaquin stood near the door, his back to the wall, his eyes tracking every movement. Lolita hovered beside him, her arms wrapped around herself like she was trying to hold her body together. "While you're looking," Joaquin said calmly, "tell me about the storage room." Patterson's hands stilled for just a fraction of a second. "What about it?" 3 weeks ago, when you spoke with Lolita," the manager's shoulders tensed. He didn't turn around. "I talked to all my employees, it's called management, in the storage room, alone." Patterson slammed the drawer shut and spun around, his face flushed. "I don't know what she told you, but I never." "Never what?" Joaquin's voice was silk over steel. "Never did anything inappropriate." Patterson's eyes flicked to Lolita, and there was something ugly in his expression. Something venomous. If she's saying otherwise, she's lying, probably trying to cover for the theft. Lolita made a small, wounded sound, like something breaking. Joaquin's hands, resting casually in his pockets, curled into fists. "She's lying," he repeated slowly. "That's right." Patterson straightened, emboldened by his own indignation. "Look at her. She's desperate, unstable. You can't trust anything she says." "Interesting." Joaquin tilted his head. "Because she hasn't accused you of anything, yet." The color drained from Patterson's face. The silence stretched like a razor blade. "I think," Joaquin continued softly, "you should tell me exactly what happened in that storage room." Patterson's mouth opened and closed. His eyes darted toward the door toward escape, but Joaquin's presence blocked it like a wall. "Nothing happened," Patterson said, his voice rising. "She's confused. Maybe she misinterpreted. Did you touch her?" The question cut through the room like a gunshot. Patterson flinched. "I know. I mean, not like it was just friendly. Professional. A hand on the shoulder. That's it. A hand on the shoulder. Yes. And her back?" Patterson's breath caught. "She told you that?" "She told me everything." Lolita was trembling now, silent tears streaming down her face. She looked like she wanted to run, to disappear, but her feet stayed rooted to the floor. Patterson's expression shifted rapidly. Panic, calculation, anger. "It wasn't like that. She's twisting it, making it sound like what?" Joaquin's voice dropped to a whisper. "Like harassment? Like coercion?" "No. Jesus Christ, no." Patterson ran a hand through his hair, his composure fracturing. "I complimented her. I was nice to her. That's not a crime. And when she didn't respond the way you wanted? Silence. You withheld her wages. That's because of the equipment, the mixer. She broke it during the lunch rush, and I had to." "How much did the mixer cost?" Patterson blinked. "What?" "The mixer. How much to repair it?" I don't remember exactly. A few hundred." "Show me the invoice." Patterson's hands fumbled with the filing cabinet again. His movements were jerky now, desperate. "It's here somewhere. I know I filed it." He pulled out folder after folder, his breathing getting heavier. Papers scattered across the desk. "I know it's here." Joaquin waited. Patterson's search became more frantic. Drawers slammed, files hit the floor. "It has to be. Maybe it's in the other cabinet. Or maybe I sent it to corporate. They handle some of the bigger repairs, so..." "There is no invoice," Joaquin said quietly. Patterson froze. "Because there was no repair." "That's not true. The mixer isn't broken." "Yes, it is. I saw her. She bumped it during a rush, maybe knocked it half an inch. But it still works." Joaquin's eyes were cold, merciless. "I checked the equipment log before I came back here. Every appliance is listed as operational." Patterson's face went white. "So let me clarify," Joaquin continued, his voice deadly soft. "You sexually harassed an employee. When she rejected you, you fabricated damages to justify withholding her wages. Then you used her desperation, her hunger to keep her quiet and compliant." No, that's not." "And tonight, when you caught her eating leftovers, You were going to fire her. Destroy any chance she had of filing a complaint. Patterson's back hit the wall. Who the hell are you? Joaquin stepped forward. Just one step. But the air in the room changed. I'm someone who hates thieves. Patterson's breathing was ragged now. I didn't steal anything. You stole 3 weeks of her life. 3 weeks of wages. 3 weeks of dignity. Joaquin's voice was ice. In my world, that's theft. This is insane. You're insane. Patterson's eyes darted to Lolita. Tell him you're fine. Tell him you don't want any trouble. Lolita's voice, when it came, was small and broken. You said I was lucky to have this job. That girls like me were replaceable. Patterson's face twisted. I was trying to motivate you. You said if I complained, you'd make sure I never worked anywhere in this city again. That's not... I never said that exactly. You did. Her voice grew stronger, sharper. You said it twice. Once in the storage room, once when I asked about my paycheck. Patterson looked like a cornered animal. Desperate. Dangerous. Fine. He threw his hands up. You want to know the truth? She's a terrible waitress. Slow. Awkward. Cost me money and complaints and refunds. I was doing her a favor by keeping her on. But if she wants to play victim, she can explain to the unemployment office why she got fired for theft. Joaquin's expression didn't change, but something in his eyes went dark. You just made a mistake, he said softly. Patterson laughed, a brittle, hysterical sound. I made a mistake? You're threatening me in my own office? And I made a mistake? Yes. What are you going to do? Hit me? Assault me? I'll have you arrested before you. The lights went out. The office plunged into darkness. And in that darkness, Patterson heard something that made his blood run cold. Footsteps. Not from Joaquin. From the hallway. Multiple footsteps. Coming closer. The darkness lasted only 3 seconds. When the lights flickered back on, Patterson saw them. 3 men stood in the doorway. They hadn't been there before. They'd materialized like shadows, given form silent, still, and absolutely terrifying. The first was built like a bulldozer, with a shaved head and a scar that ran from his temple to his jaw. The second was lean and wiry, with dead eyes that had seen too much and felt too little. The third wore an expensive watch and a smile that never reached his eyes. Rico. The one who'd left earlier, except he hadn't left at all. Patterson's mouth went dry. His eyes darted between the men, then back to Joaquin, and something clicked. Something terrible and irreversible. What is this? Patterson's voice cracked. What the hell is this? Joaquin didn't answer. He simply adjusted his cuffs, a casual, almost bored gesture, and glanced at Rico. The exits? Joaquin asked. Secured, Rico replied. His voice was flat, professional. Front door's locked. Back door too. Security cameras are on a loop. As far as anyone knows, the building's been empty since 11:30. Patterson's legs nearly gave out. He grabbed the edge of the desk for support. Wait, please. I don't know what you think. Quiet. The word was barely above a whisper, but it cut through the room like a blade. Patterson's mouth snapped shut. Joaquin turned to Lolita, his expression softening almost imperceptibly. Go sit in the dining area. Don't come back here until I call for you. Lolita's eyes were wide, her face pale. She looked between Joaquin and Patterson, understanding something was about to happen but not quite grasping what. Is he? Her voice trembled. Are you going to? Just go, Joaquin said gently. You don't need to see this. She hesitated for one more moment, then turned and fled. Her footsteps echoed down the hallway, fading into silence. The door clicked shut behind her. Now it was just Joaquin, Patterson, and the 3 men who looked like they'd walked out of a nightmare. Patterson's breathing came in short, panicked gasps. Look, I don't know who you are, but this is kidnapping. This is illegal. You can't. Can't what? Joaquin asked softly. Patterson's mouth worked, but no sound came out. Joaquin moved to the desk and sat on the edge, his posture relaxed, almost casual, like they were discussing the weather. Let me tell you what I think happened here. You saw an opportunity. A young woman, alone, desperate, no family, no connections, no one to complain to. Patterson shook his head frantically. That's not... You tested her, Joaquin continued, ignoring the interruption. Small touches, comments, seeing how much she'd tolerate. And when she finally said no, you punished her. Not with violence. That would be too obvious. No, You used something quieter, something crueler. He paused, letting the words sink in. You took away her ability to survive. Patterson's face was ashen now. Sweat beaded on his forehead. I want a lawyer. You can't do this without a lawyer. Joaquin smiled, but there was no warmth in it. You think this is a legal matter? I have rights. You had rights, Joaquin corrected. Past tense. The temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. Patterson looked at the 3 men blocking the door, looked at Joaquin, and finally understood. Oh God, he whispered. Oh my God. Joaquin stood, his movements fluid and unhurried. I'm going to ask you a question, and I want you to think very carefully before you answer. Patterson nodded frantically, tears forming in his eyes. Did you touch her? I already said. Not what you told me before, what you told me when you thought I was nobody. Joaquin's voice was ice. Did you touch her? Patterson's knees buckled. He grabbed the desk chair for support. Just her shoulder, her back. I swear that's all. I never forced, but you wanted to. Silence, didn't you? Patterson's face crumpled. I didn't do anything. She was always there. Always smiling. Always so damn nice. And I thought maybe you thought she'd be grateful, Joaquin finished. That a girl like her would be lucky to have your attention. Patterson said nothing, but the guilt on his face was answer enough. Joaquin inhaled slowly, his jaw tightening. For a moment, the mask slipped. For a moment, the rage showed through, cold and lethal and absolute. Then he smiled, and somehow, that was worse. Here's what's going to happen, Joaquin said quietly. You're going to open the safe. You're going to take out every dollar you owe Lolita, and you're going to count it. Yourself. Every single bill. Patterson nodded, his hands shaking so badly he could barely grip the safe's combination lock. Then, Joaquin continued, you're going to write her a letter of recommendation. Glowing. The kind that gets her hired anywhere she applies. You're going to apologize for the payroll error and wish her well in her future endeavors. The safe door swung open. Inside were stacks of cash, envelopes marked with employee names, and ledgers that Patterson definitely didn't want anyone looking at too closely. After that, Joaquin said, his voice dropping to a whisper, you're going to leave this city. Tonight. You're going to disappear. And you're never going to work in food service again. Patterson pulled out an envelope marked Lolita K. His hands trembled as he opened it. Inside were bills, her wages, held hostage for 3 weeks. If I ever hear your name again, Joaquin continued, if I ever hear that you're managing another restaurant, supervising another young woman, putting your hands on someone who can't fight back. He leaned in close. I won't give you a choice next time. Patterson's breath came in short, terrified gasps. Okay, I'll leave. I'll go tonight. I swear. Good. Joaquin straightened, smoothing his jacket. Rico, make sure Mr. Patterson understands the terms of his departure. Rico smiled. It was not a kind smile. My pleasure, boss. Patterson looked like he might vomit. Joaquin walked to the door, then paused. One more thing. Patterson looked up, tears streaming down his face. If anything happens to Lolita, if she has an accident, if she loses her apartment, if she so much as trips on the sidewalk, I'm going to assume you had something to do with it. I won't. I swear I won't. Joaquin studied him for a long moment. Then he turned and walked out, leaving Patterson alone with the 3 men who looked like they ate fear for breakfast. The door closed behind him with a soft click. In the silence that followed, Patterson realized he was crying. Joaquin found Lolita sitting at a booth near the window, her hands wrapped around a glass of water she hadn't touched. She looked up when he approached, her eyes red-rimmed and fearful. Is he... She couldn't finish the question. He's fine, Joaquin said, sliding into the seat across from her. For now, the qualifier hung in the air between them. Lolita stared at him, really seeing him for the first time. The expensive suit, the tattoos creeping up his neck. The way he moved, controlled, predatory, like violence was always just beneath the surface. Who are you? She whispered. Joaquin was quiet for a moment, considering his answer. He could lie, should lie, but something about the way she looked at him, exhausted, broken, but still somehow defiant, made him decide on the truth. My name is Joaquin Nieto, he said simply. The name meant nothing to her. He could see it in her blank expression. I own this diner. Her eyes widened. You what? Not officially. It's buried under shell companies, LLCs, holding corporations. But the money? The real ownership? He tapped the table. That's mine. Lolita's mouth opened and closed. Her brain was clearly trying to process what he'd just said. But Patterson said, Patterson is a manager, was a manager. He runs the day-to-day operations. Or he did. Joaquin's expression hardened. But he never owned anything. He just forgot who he was working for. Lolita shook her head, overwhelmed. I don't understand. Why are you here? Why do you care about? She gestured helplessly at herself. About this? It was a fair question. Joaquin leaned back in the booth, his eyes distant. My mother worked in a place like this. Different city, different name, but the same story. She had a manager who liked to touch the waitresses, who held their paychecks when they complained, who made them feel small and powerless. Lolita went very still. She never fought back. Joaquin continued, his voice soft but laced with old anger. She needed the job, needed the money. So she smiled and took it, and came home every night a little more broken. What happened to her? She died when I was 16. His jaw tightened. Heart attack. The doctors said it was genetic, but I knew better. She died because the world spent 40 years grinding her down until there was nothing left. The silence between them was heavy with shared pain. I'm sorry, Lolita whispered. Joaquin's eyes refocused on her. Don't be sorry. Be angry. I am angry, she said, and for the first time, there was fire in her voice. I'm furious. But what good does that do? People like me don't win against people like him. People like you, Joaquin repeated slowly. What does that mean? Lolita laughed bitterly. Poor, replaceable, nobody. You're not nobody. Yes, I am. Her voice cracked. I'm a 24-year-old waitress with a GED and $300 in the bank. I have no family, no references, no skills that matter. If I lose this job, I lose everything. You're not losing this job. She looked at him like he was insane. Patterson's going to fire me the second you leave. Patterson's not going to do anything. Something in his tone made her pause, made her really look at him. What did you do? She asked quietly. What needed to be done? That's not an answer. It's the only answer you're getting. Joaquin pulled an envelope from his jacket and set it on the table between them. This is yours. Lolita stared at the envelope like it might explode. What is it? 3 weeks of wages. Every dollar Patterson owed you. Her hands trembled as she reached for it. She opened it slowly, her eyes widening as she saw the cash inside. Bills, 20s, 50s, hundreds. Her voice broke. This is too much. That's what you earned. But how did you... The safe in Patterson's office. He had everyone's wages in there, skimming off the top, most likely, keeping cash on hand so the books looked clean. Lolita's face went pale. He was stealing from everyone? Not everyone, just the ones who couldn't fight back. Joaquin's expression darkened. The young ones, the desperate ones, the ones who needed the job too much to complain. Tears spilled down her cheeks. She clutched the envelope like it was a lifeline. I can't believe I thought I was going crazy. Thought maybe I'd done something wrong. You didn't do anything wrong. I should have reported him. To who? Joaquin asked. He was the authority. The system was designed to protect him, not you. The truth of that statement hung between them like a guillotine blade. Lolita wiped her eyes, trying to compose herself. What happens now? Now you cash that money. You eat real food. You sleep in a real bed. And Patterson? Patterson is leaving, Joaquin said simply. Tonight. He won't be bothering you or anyone else again. Did you? She couldn't finish. He's alive, Joaquin said. But he understands the consequences if he ever comes back. Lolita studied his face, trying to read what that meant. You're not just an investor, are you? No. What are you? Joaquin smiled, but there was no humor in it. Someone who solves problems. By scaring people, by making sure people understand that actions have consequences. He leaned forward, his eyes locked on hers. Patterson thought he was untouchable, thought he could abuse his authority without anyone noticing or caring. He was wrong. Because of you. Because he picked the wrong person to hurt. Lolita's breath hitched. I'm nobody. Why would you... Stop saying that. Joaquin's voice was sharp. You're not nobody. You're someone who got ground down by a system that doesn't care about people like you. Like my mother. Like too many people I've watched get destroyed by men like Patterson. He stood, smoothing his jacket. Tomorrow morning you're going to come back to work. You're going to find out that Patterson took a sudden leave of absence. The assistant manager will be handling things until we find a replacement. A replacement? Someone who knows how to treat employees like human beings. Lolita stood too, clutching the envelope. I don't know what to say. Don't say anything. Joaquin's expression softened slightly. Just don't let anyone make you feel powerless again. She nodded, tears streaming freely now. Joaquin walked toward the door, then paused. And Lolita? She looked up. You're not replaceable. Don't ever let anyone tell you different. The door chimed as he left, disappearing into the night like a shadow. Lolita stood alone in the empty diner, holding 3 weeks of her life in her hands, and for the first time in months, she felt something she'd almost forgotten. Hope. Patterson sat in the office chair, his hands still trembling as he counted the bills. Rico stood behind him, close enough that Patterson could feel his breath on the back of his neck. The other 2 men flanked the door like statues carved from violence. Faster, Rico said quietly. Patterson's fingers fumbled with a stack of 20s. I'm going as fast as I can. Not fast enough. The bills fluttered onto the desk. Patterson had to start counting again. Sweat dripped down his temple, stinging his eyes. 2,400, he finally said, his voice hoarse. That's everything. Every dollar He caught himself. Every dollar she's owed. Rico leaned down, his face inches from Patterson's ear. Plus interest. What? You held her money for 3 weeks. That's 21 days she went hungry because of you. 21 days of suffering. Rico's voice was ice. Add 500. Call it emotional damages. I don't have... A hand clamped down on Patterson's shoulder. The grip was gentle, almost friendly. But the threat was unmistakable. Find it, Rico said. Patterson's hands shook as he pulled open his wallet. Inside were credit cards, receipts, and $300 in cash. His emergency money. The stash he kept for bar tabs and late-night poker games. He added it to the pile. That's only 300, Rico observed. It's all I have. I swear, Patterson's voice cracked. You've taken everything. Rico considered this. Then he nodded to the man with dead eyes. Check the desk drawers. The man moved with disturbing efficiency. He pulled out drawer after drawer, dumping contents onto the floor. Pens scattered, papers flew, and there, in the bottom drawer, wrapped in a rubber band, more cash. $250. Rico picked it up, counted it, and added it to the pile. 2,950. Close enough. Patterson looked like he might cry. That was my rent money. Should have thought of that before you decided to play games with someone else's. The silence stretched. Patterson could hear his own heartbeat pounding in his ears. Now the letter, Rico said. Patterson grabbed a piece of company letterhead with shaking hands. What do you want me to say? That Lolita Kelly is an exceptional employee, punctual, professional, hardworking. That any establishment would be lucky to have her. Patterson's hand hovered over the paper. His pride, his ego, everything in him screamed to refuse. But the 3 men in the room made it clear refusal wasn't an option. He wrote. His handwriting was messy, almost illegible. But he wrote what they told him to write. Every word felt like swallowing glass. When he finished, Rico took the letter, read it, and nodded. Sign it, Patterson signed. Date it. He dated it. Rico folded the letter carefully and tucked it into his jacket. Then he pulled out a small notebook and a pen. Now we discuss your departure. Patterson's stomach dropped. I said I'd leave. I meant it. I'll be gone by morning. Where? What? Where are you going? Rico's pen was poised over the paper. I need a city, an address, a phone number. I don't know yet. I haven't... Figure it out. Now. Patterson's mind raced. Family? No. His brother hated him. Friends? He didn't have any real friends. Just drinking buddies and poker acquaintances. Phoenix, he blurted out. I have a cousin in Phoenix. I can stay with him until I find work. Rico wrote it down. Name? Eddie. Eddie Patterson. Address? I don't know the exact address. I'd have to call him. Rico looked up, his expression flat. Then call him. Patterson pulled out his phone with shaking hands. It took 3 tries to unlock it. He scrolled through his contacts, found Eddie's number, and pressed call. It rang 4 times before someone picked up. Yeah? Eddie's voice was groggy, irritated. Eddie, it's me. Listen, I need a favor. Do you know what time it is? Patterson glanced at the clock. 1:47 a.m. I know. But this is important. I need to stay with you for a while. Just a few weeks until I get on my feet. Silence on the other end. Eddie, what did you do? Nothing. I just work didn't pan out. I need to relocate. In the middle of the night. Yes. More silence. Then Eddie sighed. Fine. But you're sleeping on the couch, and you're paying rent. I'm not running a charity, of course. Thank you. What's your address? Eddie rattled off an address in a Phoenix suburb. Patterson repeated it while Rico wrote it down. I'll be there by tomorrow afternoon, Patterson said. Whatever. Eddie hung up. Patterson lowered the phone, his hands still trembling. There. I have a place. I'll be gone by dawn. You'll never hear from me again. Rico studied the notebook. Phoenix. Good. Long way from here. He looked up, and his smile was predatory, but not far enough that we can't find you if we need to. The threat was clear. Patterson nodded frantically. I understand. I won't come back. I won't contact anyone here. I'll disappear. You will, Rico agreed. But just so we're clear on what happens if you don't. He gestured to the man with the scar. The man stepped forward and placed a photograph on the desk. Patterson's blood turned to ice. It was him, leaving his apartment, getting into his car. The photo was recent, dated from this morning. We know where you live, Rico said conversationally. We know what you drive. We know your routines, your habits, your favorite bar. Another photograph. Patterson at a liquor store. Another. Patterson at a gas station. We've been watching you for 2 days, Rico continued. Ever since the boss started noticing irregularities in the payroll, Patterson felt like he might vomit. If you come back, Rico said, his voice dropping to a whisper, if you even think about retaliating against Lolita or anyone else who works here, we'll know. And the next time you see us, it won't be for a conversation. Patterson's vision blurred with tears. I won't. I swear on my life, I won't. Rico stood, smoothing his jacket. Good. Because your life is exactly what you'd be swearing away. He walked to the door, then paused. You have 2 hours to pack. If you're still in this city by sunrise, our deal is off. I'll be gone, Patterson whispered. I promise. The 3 men left without another word. Patterson sat alone in the office, surrounded by empty drawers and scattered papers, and realized he'd just lost everything. His job, his money, his power. And somewhere in the darkness, Joaquin Nieto was watching, waiting, making sure Patterson made the right choice. For once in his miserable life. The sky was still dark when Patterson threw the last duffel bag into his trunk. His hands shook as he slammed the lid shut, the sound echoing through the empty parking lot like a gunshot. 2 hours. They'd given him 2 hours. He'd packed in 45 minutes. His apartment looked like it had been ransacked, drawers hanging open, closet emptied, mail scattered across the counter. He'd taken only what he could carry. Clothes, toiletries, his laptop, and the $500 he'd found hidden in a coffee can under the sink. Everything else, the furniture, the TV, the life he'd built here, he was leaving behind, because staying meant dying. He understood that now. Patterson climbed into his car, his breath fogging the windshield. The engine turned over with a rough cough. He sat there for a moment, staring at his apartment building. 10 years he'd lived here. 10 years of climbing the ladder, building his reputation, establishing his authority. Gone in a single night, because of one girl who wouldn't sleep with him. No, that wasn't fair. That wasn't true. Because of himself. Because he'd thought he was untouchable. Because he'd mistaken a title for real power. Patterson pulled out of the parking lot and drove toward the highway. The streets were empty, save for a few delivery trucks and the occasional taxi. The city looked different at this hour. Quieter, lonelier, like a stage after the audience had gone home. He passed the diner. The lights were off. The parking lot was empty. But he could see a single figure standing near the back door, silhouetted against the security light, watching. Patterson's foot hit the accelerator. He didn't stop until he reached the interstate. The diner opened late the next morning. Lolita arrived at 7 a.m. Her stomach knotted with anxiety. She'd barely slept. The envelope of cash sat on her nightstand like a bomb, real, tangible, impossible to ignore. She'd counted it 3 times. $2,950. More money than she'd seen in years. She pushed through the front door, expecting to see Patterson behind the counter, his face twisted with rage, ready to fire her on the spot. Instead, she found Sophia, the assistant manager, flipping through the schedule book with a confused expression. Have you seen Patterson? Sophia asked without looking up. Lolita's throat tightened. No. Why? He's not answering his phone. didn't show up for his shift. Sophia finally looked up, her brow furrowed. That's not like him. Maybe he's sick, Lolita offered weakly. Maybe. Sophia didn't sound convinced. She set the schedule book down and sighed. Guess I'm running things today. Can you cover section 3? Jenny called in. Of course. Sophia smiled, tired but genuine. Thanks. You're a lifesaver. Lolita tied on her apron and got to work. The morning rush came and went. Truckers ordered coffee and eggs. Regulars asked for their usual. Everything felt normal, except Patterson's office door stayed closed. By noon, Sophia tried calling him again. No answer. By 2 p.m., she called Patterson's emergency contact, his brother who said he hadn't heard from him in months. By 4 p.m., Sophia called the owner, or at least, she tried to. The number on file rang 3 times before a smooth, professional voice answered. Blue Moon Holdings, how can I help you? Sophia explained the situation manager missing. No communication. Schedule in chaos. The voice on the other end was calm, unbothered. We'll send someone to handle things. Give us 24 hours. But we need 24 hours. The line went dead. Sophia stared at her phone, then at Lolita. That was weird. What did they say? That someone's coming. Sophia shook her head. I've worked here 5 years. I've never actually talked to the owner. Didn't even know there was an owner. I thought Patterson ran everything. Lolita said nothing. She wiped down tables and refilled salt shakers, and tried not to think about Joaquin Nieto's cold smile. Patterson didn't stop driving until he crossed into Arizona. His back ached. His eyes burned. He'd gone through 2 energy drinks and a package of gas station beef jerky. When he finally pulled into Eddie's driveway, the sun was setting, painting the desert sky in shades of orange and red. Eddie came out onto the porch, arms crossed, his expression somewhere between annoyed and concerned. You look like hell, Eddie said. Patterson climbed out of the car, his legs stiff. Thanks. What happened? I told you. Work didn't pan out. Eddie studied him for a long moment. You run from the cops or something? No. Owe someone money? No. Then what? Patterson opened his mouth, closed it. What could he say? That he'd sexually harassed an employee? That he'd stolen her wages? That he'd been caught by a man who owned the kind of power that made laws irrelevant? It's complicated, he finally said. Eddie shook his head. It always is with you. He turned toward the house. Couches in the living room. Bathrooms down the hall. Don't touch my stuff. Patterson followed him inside, dragging his duffel bag behind him. The house was small, cluttered, smelling of stale beer and old carpet. The couch was lumpy and stained. The TV was ancient. It was the furthest thing from the life Patterson had imagined for himself. He dropped onto the couch and stared at the ceiling. His phone buzzed. Unknown number. He almost didn't answer, but something made him pick up. Hello? Silence. Then a voice, smooth, cold, unmistakable. You made it to Phoenix. Patterson's blood ran cold. How did you? I told you we'd know. Joaquin's voice was calm, almost conversational. This is your reminder. You stay there. You stay quiet. You don't contact anyone from your old life. I won't. I swear. Good. A pause. And Patterson? Yes. If I hear your name again, if you manage another restaurant, supervise another woman, even think about touching someone who can't fight back, you won't get a phone call. You'll just disappear. The line went dead. Patterson sat in the darkness of his cousin's living room, his phone trembling in his hand. He'd driven 600 miles, and it still wasn't far enough. Back at the diner, Lolita finished her shift and walked out into the cool evening air. Her pocket felt heavy with tips, real tips, more than she'd made in weeks. She looked back at the diner, at the flickering neon sign, at the empty manager's parking spot, and felt something shift inside her. Patterson was gone. She didn't know how, didn't know where, but she knew why. And for the first time in 3 weeks, she walked home without looking over her shoulder, without counting every dollar, without eating from the trash. She walked home free. Lolita stood in the now familiar office, but everything about it felt different. The stale coffee smell remained, but Patterson's presence had been scrubbed from the space. The filing cabinet stood neatly closed. The desk held only a new ledger, a pen, and a single key. Joaquin leaned against the wall by the window, silhouetted by the late afternoon sun streaming through the blinds. He'd changed into a simpler black shirt, sleeves rolled to the elbows, his tattoos visible a tapestry of old pain and hard-won power. Sit, he said, not unkindly, nodding toward the chair behind the desk. Lolita stared at it. Patterson's chair, the throne from which he'd ruled with petty cruelty. "I'd rather stand." A faint smile touched Joaquin's lips. "Suit yourself?" She clutched the envelope of cash in her hands, the paper crinkling under her nervous fingers. 3 days had passed since Patterson's disappearance. 3 days of whispers among the staff, of sideways glances her way, of Sophia quietly taking over, scheduling while avoiding any mention of what had happened. "You asked to see me," Lolita said, her voice steadier than she felt. "I did." Joaquin pushed off the wall and moved to sit on the edge of the desk, putting them at eye level. "How are you sleeping?" The question surprised her. "Better. I bought groceries." "Good." He studied her face with that unnerving focus. "The money's gone where it should? Rent's paid. Fridge is full." She hesitated. "I bought a new uniform. This one's clean. You didn't have to do that." "Yes, I did." Her voice gained strength. "I couldn't wear that one anymore. It smelled like fear." Joaquin nodded, understanding in his eyes. "Fair enough." Silence settled between them, comfortable in a way that should have felt impossible. This man had terrorized a predator into vanishing. He commanded men who moved like shadows, yet here he sat, asking about her sleep. "Why am I here?" she finally asked. "2 reasons." Joaquin folded his hands. "First, I'm promoting you to assistant manager." Lolita's breath caught. "What?" "Sophia's good, but she's overwhelmed. She needs someone she trusts. The staff respects you. They watched what happened to you. They'll follow you." "I don't know anything about managing. You know more than you think. You know which suppliers short us, which shifts are understaffed, which customers cause trouble." His eyes held hers. "You've been surviving in this system for months. That makes you an expert." Lolita's mind raced. Assistant manager, more money, real hours, a key to the office, a voice. "What's the second reason?" she asked, wary. Joaquin's expression shifted, the businessman giving way to something darker. "Protection. From Patterson? He's gone. From anyone." Joaquin stood and moved to the window, looking out at the parking lot. "What happened to you didn't happen in a vacuum. It happened because the system was designed to let it happen. A manager with unchecked power, employees too scared to speak, an owner too distant to notice." He turned back to her. "That changes today." From his pocket, he produced a small, sleek phone. He placed it on the desk between them. "This is yours. My number is programmed into it. So is Rico's. So is a lawyer who works for me." Lolita stared at the phone like it was a live grenade. "I can't accept this." "You can, and you will." His voice left no room for argument. "If anyone touches you, if anyone threatens you, if anyone withholds so much as $1 of your pay, you call. Day or night." "Why?" The word burst from her, raw and honest. "Why do you care? You fixed it. Patterson's gone. I got my money. Why are you still here?" Joaquin was quiet for a long moment. The hum of the refrigerator down the hall filled the silence. "Because fixing one problem isn't enough," he said finally. "Because my mother died believing no one would ever help her. Because for every Patterson I remove, there are 10 more waiting to take his place." He picked up the phone, holding it out to her. "But if the people they target have a direct line to someone like me, they'll think twice." Lolita took the phone. It felt heavy, solid, a lifeline. "This isn't charity," Joaquin continued. "It's strategy. You're my eyes and ears here now. You'll report directly to me about payroll, staffing, anything that smells wrong. In return, you have my protection. Not just from predators, but from eviction, from medical debt, from the 1,000 little ways the world tries to grind people like you into dust." "People like me," she repeated softly. "People who work hard and get nothing. People who stay quiet because they think no one's listening." He leaned forward, his gaze intense. "I'm listening, Lolita, and so are you now." She understood then. This wasn't just about her. It was about changing the ecosystem of this place, of every place he owned, making it so that abuse couldn't flourish in the shadows. "What about the others?" she asked. "The staff. They're scared too." "Then reassure them." Joaquin nodded toward the door. "Starting tomorrow, we're implementing staff meals. 1 full meal per shift. Free. No leftovers. No trash. Real food. We're also starting an anonymous reporting system, a locked box where employees can drop concerns without fear. You'll check it daily." Lolita felt something swell in her chest. Hope, yes, but something fiercer too. Purpose. And if someone reports something serious, Then we handle it. His tone promised consequences. Quietly, permanently, she looked down at the phone in her hand, then at the key on the desk. Can I make a condition? Joaquin raised an eyebrow, amused. Go on. I want to hire someone. A friend. She's a single mother, works 2 jobs, just got evicted. She's a harder worker than anyone I know. Done. No hesitation. Tell her to come in tomorrow. Lolita blinked. Just like that? Just like that. He stood, smoothing his shirt. You're in charge of hiring for front of house now. Hire people who need the work. People who've been overlooked. But make sure they're honest, loyal. This only works if we trust each other. She nodded, her mind already racing with possibilities. Maria from the shelter, Ben from the food bank line, people with tired eyes and strong hands. One more thing, Joaquin said as he moved to the door. He pulled a small envelope from his jacket and handed it to her. Open it later. Then he was gone, leaving her alone in the office that was now partly hers. Lolita sat in Patterson's chair for the first time. It was softer than she'd imagined. She placed the phone and the key on the desk, then carefully opened the envelope. Inside was a paycheck, not cash, an actual, formal paycheck, made out to Lolita Kelly, for the amount of $2,950, memo line, back pay, no debts, and beneath it, a handwritten note on heavy, expensive paper. Power isn't just about having it, it's about giving it to those who deserve it. Don't be invisible anymore. J.N. Lolita folded the note carefully, tears pricking her eyes. Not tears of fear this time, tears of something else, something she hadn't felt in so long she'd forgotten its name. Dignity. She stood, slipping the phone into her pocket, the key into her hand. She walked out of the office and into the main diner. The dinner shift was starting, the air filling with the sizzle of the grill, the chatter of customers, the clatter of plates. Sophia looked up from the host stand, her expression questioning. Lolita held up the key. We need to talk about the schedule. And I have some ideas about staff meals. Drejas. Sophia's face broke into a relieved smile. Thank God. I've been drowning. For the next hour, they worked side by side. Lolita made notes about inventory shortages, suggested shift swaps to help a dishwasher get to his night classes, flagged a supplier who'd been overcharging for months. The staff watched her, not with fear, but with something new: curiosity, respect. At 7 p.m., the new cook, a big man named Hector, brought out a plate. A real meal, grilled chicken, roasted vegetables, mashed potatoes with gravy. He set it on the counter in front of Lolita. Staff meal, he said gruffly. Boss's orders. Lolita looked at the plate. Steam rose from it. It smelled like rosemary and garlic and home. She didn't hide. She didn't hurry. She sat at the counter, in the light, where everyone could see her, and she ate. And for the first time in 3 weeks, she tasted every single bite. 2 weeks later, the Blue Moon Diner hummed with a different kind of energy. The neon sign still flickered. The coffee still smelled bitter and strong. The same regulars still occupied the same worn vinyl booths. But the silence that had once been thick with fear had been replaced by something lighter: conversation. Laughter. The easy clatter of a kitchen running smoothly. Lolita stood at the counter, reviewing the new weekly schedule on a tablet. Her tablet. Another quiet delivery from Joaquin, along with a note. For the modern manager. She'd hired 3 new staff members: Maria, her friend from the shelter, who now worked mornings with a calm efficiency that soothed the breakfast rush. Ben, who washed dishes with a focus that bordered on reverence, grateful for the steady hours. And Chloe, a culinary student who redesigned the staff meal menu to be both affordable and nourishing. The anonymous reporting box, mounted discreetly near the time clock, remained empty. Not because problems didn't exist, Lolita suspected, but because they were being solved out in the open now. A cook with a grievance spoke to Sophia. A server needing a shift swap came to Lolita. The fear had been redirected away from each other, and toward anyone who might threaten the new equilibrium. Joaquin hadn't returned, but his presence was woven into the fabric of the place. In the new security cameras, not hidden but openly displayed. In the updated payroll system that sent digital stubs to every employee's phone every Friday. In the unspoken understanding that someone was watching, and that someone cared about justice. The bell above the door chimed. Lolita looked up, and her breath caught. He stood in the doorway, backlit by the evening sun. Not in the armor-like black suit, but in dark jeans and a gray sweater, the collar of his shirt hinting at the tattoos beneath. He looked less like a specter and more like a man. A dangerous man, but a man nonetheless. He met her eyes and gave a slight, almost imperceptible nod. He took a seat at the far end of the counter, the same spot he'd occupied weeks ago when he was just a silent investor. He didn't look at a menu. He didn't need to. Lolita poured a cup of coffee black, no sugar, and brought it to him. Her hands didn't shake. "Boss," she said, setting the mug down. "Manager," he replied, a ghost of a smile at the corner of his mouth. She didn't ask why he was here. She didn't need to. This was a check-in, an inspection, a reminder that the protection offered was not without observation. "How's the balance sheet?" he asked quietly, his eyes scanning the dining room. "Up 12% since last month. Food costs are down thanks to Chloe's vendor renegotiations. Staff turnover is 0. And the box? Empty." "Good." He took a sip of coffee. "It means the system is working. For now." He watched as Maria refilled a customer's coffee with a genuine smile. Watched as Ben delivered perfectly clean plates to the pass. Watched as Sophia laughed with a regular at the register. "You've built something here," he said, his voice low. "We did," Lolita corrected gently. He glanced at her, and for a moment, the mask slipped completely. She saw not the Mafia boss, not the Avenger, but the boy who'd watched his mother count coins. The man who carried the weight of every injustice he couldn't prevent. "She would have liked this," he said, so quietly she almost didn't hear it. Lolita didn't ask who. She knew. "I think so too." Hector appeared from the kitchen, holding 2 plates. He set one in front of Joaquin, the same grilled chicken and vegetables Lolita had eaten her first night as assistant manager. He set the other in front of Lolita. "Staff meal," Hector said, then returned to the kitchen without another word. Lolita sat on the stool beside Joaquin, not too close but side by side, looking out at the diner they had, in their own ways, reclaimed. They ate in comfortable silence. The food was good, simple, honest. As Joaquin finished, he pushed his plate away and turned slightly on his stool, his gaze settling on her. "You're not afraid anymore." It wasn't a question. "No," she said. "I'm angry. But it's a clean anger. It fuels me, instead of starving me." "What are you angry at?" "The world that makes places like this necessary." She gestured around them. "The system that tells people like Maria, like Ben, like me, that we're disposable, that our suffering is just the cost of doing business." She looked at him. "I'm angry that it took someone like you to change it." "Someone like me," he repeated, a dark amusement in his eyes. "A man who operates outside the law to enforce a better one." He considered this, nodding slowly. "The law protects property, not people. I protect what's mine." "And we're yours now?" she asked, not challenging but understanding. "Yes. No apology, no euphemism, which means no one else touches you, no one else exploits you. You work, you get paid, you go home safe. That's the only contract that matters." He stood, pulling a folded bill from his pocket and placing it under his coffee mug. $100 bill, far too much. A message, not a payment. "The promotion becomes permanent tomorrow," he said. "Salary, benefits, a percentage of the profits. The details are in your email." Lolita stood as well, facing him. "Thank you." "Don't thank me. You earned it." He looked at her, really looked at her, and she saw the predator, the protector, and the man, all woven together. "This only works if you never go back to being invisible. You see everything, you hear everything, and you tell me, I will." He turned to leave, then paused, his hand on the door. He looked back at the diner, at the warm light, the full booths, the staff moving with purpose instead of dread. The image mirrored the one from weeks before, but everything had changed. The counter was the same stainless steel. The hum of the refrigerator was the same, but the girl eating leftovers in the dark was gone. In her place was a woman standing in the light, well-fed, unafraid, and in charge. Joaquin's eyes met Lolita's one last time across the room. A silent acknowledgement passed between them of what had been done, of what had been saved, of the fragile, brutal justice they now shared. Then he was gone, melting into the twilight as seamlessly as he'd arrived. Lolita cleared his plate and mug. She didn't look at the $100 bill. She would put it in the new staff emergency fund, a small reserve she'd started for medical copays or sudden car repairs. She walked back to the counter and finished her coffee, cold now, but still welcome. The night shift began to trickle in, greeting her by name. She felt their trust, a fragile and precious thing. She thought of Patterson, somewhere in Phoenix, sleeping on a stained couch. She thought of Joaquin, moving through the city's shadows, righting wrongs with terrifying efficiency. She thought of her mother, who'd worked her hands raw in a similar diner, and died believing no one would ever help. The most terrifying man in the city had walked into her darkest moment. He hadn't offered kindness. He hadn't offered charity. He had offered power, and in doing so, he had given her back her life. Lolita picked up her tablet, ready to face the night's orders. She stood straight, her uniform crisp, her eyes clear. She was no longer a girl hiding in a kitchen. She was a woman who had been seen, and the man who'd seen her, the man who hadn't looked away, had changed everything. Thanks for staying with this story right till the final moment. You're the reason these stories come alive. If you're ready for another powerful journey, just tap the next video on your screen. And before you go, leave a quick comment and rate this story from 1 to 10. I'm excited to see your thoughts and connect with you down there.